Have you ever been ashamed of yourself? Have you ever committed a sin or just done something that wasn't right, maybe when you were a kid, and you were just so ashamed? Or maybe you said something to someone and you're like, I could never face that person again. Well, all of us have felt ashamed at some time, hopefully. If not, that's probably a problem. But the Lord doesn't look at us the same way we look at ourselves once we've been cleansed by the blood of Christ. Do you have kids? Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't. Perhaps you've seen a kid acting unruly at the store, or perhaps you yourself have been an unruly little bugger. I haven't been like that because I'm really cool. But, so one time I was at the park. My daughter Lily was about 3 years old, and we were at the park, and there were these kids, and she was playing with them, and that's fine, and it's cool. And she said, Dad, in front of them and their parents, she said, Dad, why are they black? She didn't know why. She'd never understood that, and the topic had never come up. But I, as a parent, stood there in front of them. I had a loss for words. I didn't know what to say. So I said, hey, how about we get back on the monkey bars, And then there was this one time, thank the Lord that he gave me this time to preach. I was preaching, so I was giving a sermon at night, and then our son, Conrad, or Elijah, was just acting up, making a nuisance, making all kinds of noise and stuff like that in church. You probably heard that. And so Monica, beloved Monica, took him into the other room, talked to him about it, and I could hear him and her. And then he came back in, started acting like a little bugger again. Then he goes in there, and I hear her spank him. And he's like, ah, and I can hear that. And all this time, I'm embarrassed because he's the only kid in church. Everybody knows what's going on here, and I'm still just trying to preach. And then this happens a couple of times, and then I see her, and then I don't see him. But then I'm at the very front, and they're sitting in the very back, and under the very pew at the front while I'm preaching is this little boy crawling down under the things like a little snake. And then his mom comes to get him while I'm preaching, and he goes and runs out the other way, and she grabs him, and of course she's right to do this. She smacked him for doing that, and he's, ah! And I'm trying to preach, hearing all of this stuff. So proud of my family and the children God gave me, right? And so then he just makes a nuisance out there, and she is fed up. She's trying to help me, blessed wife that the Lord gave me. And she takes him outside, and I can hear him wailing outside still while I'm trying to preach. And then I don't know what to do. Have you ever had a situation like that? Maybe you took your kids over to your friend's house and they just went into their drawers for some reason, was just going through everything, breaking vases, just leaving it there like it never even happened. Whatever the case. And so I tell you that because sometimes we feel so ashamed of our sins. We might never make it. God, how can you look at me, Lord? Like in Luke chapter 5, there's this miraculous catch of fish, and Peter understands fairly who Jesus Christ is, but when he helps him in his daily routine and he catches those fish, what is Peter's reaction? He falls down and pleads with him. He says, hey, get away from me. I'm too sinful. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who you are? I don't need to be around you. You shouldn't waste any time with me. But the Lord is very different than us. We don't look at things the way he does. We are so fully cleansed in the blood of Christ that we look like Jesus Christ to God. That befuddles me. It's like almost I can't even say those words because it just doesn't seem right. But listen to this, Hebrews chapter 2, verse 10. In bringing many sons to glory, it was fitting that God, for whom and through everything exists, should make the author of their salvation perfect through suffering. So Jesus made us perfect because he suffered the cross which he didn't need to for us. Both the one who makes men holy, Jesus, and those who are being made holy, us who are Christians, are of the same family. Sometimes, you don't want to talk to your brother. You don't want to talk to your sister. You're like, man, I'm not talking to you for a while. One time, my dad and I didn't talk for a while, and it was all my fault. But still, we're of the same family, but we're not cool with each other. But how is it in the family of God? So Jesus is not ashamed to call them brothers. You and I, we're brothers? Okay, that's cool. But in heaven, can you imagine Jesus Christ with all the angels in heaven, and then there's God, I sin again. He says, what are you going to do about this one, Jesus? And Jesus shows him the marks in his hands. He says, I've already covered this. And what does he tell everybody? The Bible often talks about angels are peering into these things. So they've all seen me mess up. They've all seen what an idiot I am and how embarrassing I am to the family of God, And what does he say in verse 13? It says, here I am and the children God has given me. Now, is that what I felt like saying on the night when Conrad interrupted the sermon like that? No, it wasn't like that. Sometimes I tell him, if you're really, really good, I'm going to give you a really, really good treat or present, But he was sitting on his tricycle that night, and I said, if you ever do that again, I'm going to give you a really, really, and he's like, I go, a really, 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 really big spanking. And he goes, like that. But that's not how it is with Christ. He says, hey, here I am, and the children you gave me, God, every single one of them is here with me. I didn't let one out of my hand. That salvation, I nailed it for them, God. And so that's our confidence. So if you ever have trouble, look into this verse, look into this chapter. It is about when Jesus became like us. It's amazing. So look into it.